What is up YouTube, and welcome to this Rick and Morty video. If you're new, then please do consider subscribing with notifications on, and if you enjoyed the episode, please do drop a like. And with that out of the way, let's dive into this video. So after last week's divisive meta episode, we have somewhat of a normal story, but as Dan Harmon says on the Inside the Episode video, it's one of their only, if first non-linear episodes, which is pretty curious that we've not had that yet. Now, when we think about it, last week was an absolute masterclass on storytelling and riffing on bad story. I would personally expect that subsequent episodes this season to combine classic season 1 stories with different story devices and storytelling ways. If we're thinking it was a trick last week and we would be getting Evil Morty soon, no, we simply got a standard story of Rick and Morty just totally being awful. The whole flip of the adventurers being the bad guys, has to be honest, it has done to death. But the episode and how it's structured was actually very well done. I missed a lot of this on my first watch, and I watched it again after, and the episode and the structure makes the story so much better, and the impact of the opening scenes of Escape even more touching, and the action was very, very well done. We got a 9/11 episode joke and also a Pearl Harbor riff, which is actually a riff on the hypocrisy of the untouchable subject of 9/11 in comedy. Now, I won't say if it's right or wrong, but comedy, in my opinion, should have no limits, just as long as it's well done and not just simply edgy for edgy's sake. Now, Summer is once again the best of us here, and I loved how the only reason she survived was the fact that, well, she actually had a toothpick, and she survived not having any sort of face huggers, but the others just weren't so lucky. Face hugger is the wrong term, as Dan Harmon mentions. They called this the Starro episode, which is an odd little Justice League villain, and he had a big run in the last few years. It's to do with mind control and things like that. Now, the idea of Glorzo uniting the species and Summer showing them a new way of simply not destroying themselves within, basically shitting themselves to death, is showing how humanity is somewhat of an Ouroboros eating itself. And while the country song of Glory to Glorzo reminded me of those post 9/11 songs, it just didn't hit very well, and in my opinion is one of the weakest musical parts of the show so far. Now, these themes are actually later shown in the episode during the escape. We see the group escape and we think that the entire civilization are evil for no reason other than the attached things to the host's face, which makes the aliens wonder why they thought that this, because there was literally a tower showing peace, and Summer, while she was forgotten and left behind, has actually been building a society and things like that. What I loved was how Rick and Morty actually had to go back to a planet they basically Pearl Harbored and Star Wars'd their way out of. The debate about whether the stormtroopers and workers on the Death Star were actually innocent at all, and inside the episode, the writers say how they wanted to riff on the idea of the heroes blasting everyone to death. Here, not only do they have to atone for their sins and go back, after the initial escape, we see that the lives of those they killed in a flashback and how they first got there, and we see that all of these people actually had a real proper experience and things like that. Now, one interesting scene was the parasite Starros on the face of Rick and Morty, and those aliens actually fall in love with each other, which I found very, very weird. I wasn't sure how to feel about that. It just felt very odd, and I'm not sure where they were going with that, and it just feels a bit creepy considering that it is grandfather and grandson there. Yes, it gets a bit to the nose there. But the TV trope of the sister being the punching bag has got boring. We've had that with Meg, we've had that with Lisa in The Simpsons, and we got to look at Summer being interesting, but she is the star here, and I actually hope that we get more of Summer. Now, moving back to the tropes, Rick says that we do not actually get sequel episodes. He doesn't do that. He's not a hack or anything like that, but we know that Gear World and Purge World, as they're mentioned by himself, they are how they were from when the episode ended. So if you remember, those worlds were pretty savaged by Rick and Morty, and I think that they're setting this up, and I think we might actually hear from these worlds later down the line, as following the idea that destruction has consequences is very, very interesting, and that's pretty much what we saw here. they wanted to escape. Well, they could have escaped a different way. They could have not absolutely blasted everyone to smithereens, which is again what the show and the writers were trying to say, that, well, we never really have much touching moments, and we have these people who had just been completely destroying the entire planet for the sake of it, and, well, that again has its consequences. So I really do like that, and I would love to see where we actually go. And as Morty says, all they actually learned from this episode was that, yes, they are awful, and yes, Morty, you are awful. But he is now becoming sort of numb to the destruction they've had throughout the entire show, and Rick, who is obviously older and has had more experiences, he is beyond numb, and we're seeing Morty get to that point. Now, one thing I couldn't get was the take on podcasting, as Harmon actually had his own podcast, Harmontown, and how someone was listening to a Glorzo podcast, which makes me feel that the alien species were somehow luring space travelers to their own death. Maybe I missed something, just so sound off in the comments there on what you thought about the ending. In my opinion, was the worst part of the episode, but calls back to how they had to shove seeds up their butts in the first episode, and the whole just needing to take a shit was totally lame in my opinion. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't really find it funny. It just felt gratuitous, and yes, the show is fart and burp jokes and toilet humour, but they could have actually done something a bit better here. And they actually had a riff on that last episode when we see Rick just farting, walking into a room, and it just didn't really feel clever, and I'm not really sure why they actually decided to do this. But the other ending of Jerry here was pretty weird, with one of Summer's friends actually wanting to get down and dirty with Jerry, who is now a beekeeper, which I thought was pretty funny. And it's weird that they made him a beekeeper. I'm not really sure, again, what the riff here and what the joke is, because, you know, we actually need to have bees in this planet to survive, but it's Jerry, and he'll somehow completely mess it up. Maybe he is just actually keeping murder hornets, and it turns out that he is to blame for the murder hornets currently in the US of A. I would like that. That would be pretty funny, but it does make me feel that him having an admirer is completely out of character for Jerry, and maybe this is literally going to be another Tammy situation with her being an agent of the Galactic Federation, but we're not getting the story arcs, are we? Or are we? Overall, it was an okay episode with interesting ideas, but a lot of jokes to me didn't land, and it's tough to see what will happen next, as the writers basically tipped all of their cards out into the last episode and really just messed the deck up. But that's it for this video, so please do drop a like and subscribe down below, and I'll see you soon.